today I'm going to be making some next level gluten-free cinnamon rolls. I love a cinnamon roll. I love spices, good fresh spices, and a soft, gooey cinnamon roll. Think about brunches. Think about sitting here. I'm going to start off with my liquid ingredients just to give them a little bit of a head start because I want you to show you what happens. I have milk. You can use regular cow milk. Great. The fat in the milk gives the dough a little bit of richness. So if you are using a non-dairy alternative, which you absolutely can, it works like a charm. It's lovely. Choose one that has a little bit of richness to it. I have had great success with hemp milk. I have had great success with coconut milk. So the next ingredient that I have is really one of the secrets to the whole thing. This one is really important. This is psyllium powder. Psyllium, P-S-Y-L-L-I-U-M, psyllium is a plant, is a very fibrous plant, and actually it's used in a lot of fiber supplements. So sometimes you find this in that section of the grocery store, in addition to the baking or the bulk section. It comes in 3 different forms. So you can get the powder, which is what I have here. You can get a coarse powder, which it just looks like chunkier, a little bit chunkier. Or you can get the whole psyllium, which is kind of like little longer pieces. All of those will work in this recipe. I have tried each and every one for you to make absolutely sure. The smaller the grind, the faster it's going to work. So I'm going to put this in this milk right now, and we're going to do what we call blooming it or making a gel, okay? That is one of the secrets to this recipe, and I will tell you about that in just a second. But first, I just wanted to tell you that this powder right here is going to work a little bit faster than the bigger chunks just because it has more surface area. So whatever you have, if you already have some at your house, go ahead and use it. It will be great. Measure it by weight because those different grinds will fit different amounts in a measuring spoon, right? So to get it right, make sure that you've got a little scale and you measure it by weight. In order, if you're going to change from the powder, which is what I put in the recipe. Otherwise, go ahead and use the powder. You can use those volume measures that I put in there for you. But the reason I'm doing this one is super crucial, and it is because, we are replacing in this recipe, obviously, the gluten. Gluten is a stretchy matrix of proteins that when you bake a yeasted dough like this or like a bread, it creates, a little bubble like a balloon that blows up with the air that's in the dough, and that's why you get all that puffiness. We are not going to be able to have gluten in our gluten-free cinnamon rolls, so we want another stretchy item to hold in the air, the bubbles, create that little balloon, and puff our dough up. So we are using psyllium to do that. And I am just blooming it in the liquid that hydrates and gives us a really nice sort of thick, stretchy substance to make those bubbles. So I'm going to put that to the side. If you are using the powder, it takes about 5 minutes. If you are going to use the coarser grind, it may take up to 10. But, for cinnamon rolls, it's not too bad, right? We get cinnamon rolls at the end of it. So just going to leave that alone. One other comment about the psyllium. When you're out there buying it, there are some brands that are a little bit darker in colors than others. Usually they have a clear part of the package. If you look at it and it looks like it's a darker brown or even sort of a brown purpley color, it will make your dough a little browner. That's okay. There's nothing wrong. And remember, we're putting a bunch of cinnamon in it, so it's really not going to matter anyway. So if you see a package and it has the lighter color, it'll stay white. Otherwise, don't think you've done it wrong. That's just the nature of the plant. It's just how it is. So it's fine. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do, I briefly mentioned a scale. I know. We don't want our lives to be complicated, but this is one of the secrets to great gluten-free baking, especially yeasted doughs, are these tools right here is a scale. You can get a cheap one as long as it has, it can go back and forth in between pounds and grams because you want to be able to do either one. You want to take advantage of all the recipes that are good and are out there. So you want that. And also you want one of your buttons to say either 0 or tear because this is your ticket to less stress and less dishes because, we're going to be measuring our ingredients into the bowl. If you can hit tear or 0, then it will take it back down to 0. We don't have to use measuring cups and spoons and get things dirty. We just shake the bag right over it and then hit 0 every time, and there you go. Your life is super easy. So you want that button. Other than that, get what kind you like. So I have a bowl of my stand mixer. If you don't have a stand mixer, you can do this by hand. You are going to earn your cinnamon rolls that way. You will definitely enjoy them at the end because you're going to work hard for them. You can start out stirring and then move on to kneading just with, I feel like it's good to get in there with your hands if you don't have a stand mixer to really knead it. That's fine. You can definitely do that. No worries at all. I'll kind of show you in the stand mixer and then show you what the dough looks like, how you can knead it, so you get a little bit of both. So I'm going to put this bowl on my scale here, and I'm going to start putting my dry ingredients, my different flours. Now, you may notice I have several different kinds of gluten-free flours here. There are, and there are a lot of gluten-free flours out there, and a lot of them say all-purpose gluten-free flour or 1-to-1, and I will tell you what, those flour mixes are fantastic, especially for non-yeasted applications. In fact, if you look on the back, a lot of them will even say, don't use this in yeast recipes. So, darn, unfortunately, they're a little softer and have less strength than we need in a yeasted recipe. So, if you have that bag of the 1-to-1 flour, don't worry about it. I've got lots of recipes. You can go over to my newsletter or my site and see you can make scones, you can make brownies, you can make flatbreads, you can make biscuits, you can make all sorts of things out of that. But for a yeasted dough, we need a little more strength. So we're just going to mix up our own mixture with just a few other flours. So what I have here is I have some brown rice flour. You could absolutely use white rice flour. However, brown rice has a little more protein in it, so it does make it a little bit stronger. You get a slightly better result if you have that, but feel free to substitute if that's what you got in house. I don't want to make your life hard. So this is just, ground up brown rice. Now, different brands of flour, especially brown rice or rice flours of all kinds, are ground differently. Some of them are really, really finely ground. So they would be very compact and fit in a tiny amount in a cup measure. And some of them are very coarse. So there'd be lots of air in between and they're sort of fluffy. That's why weighing it is the best. And also, so we get the same amount, no matter what brand you're using. And also, this recipe is set up to give you a good long rest time. So if you do have one of those coarser rice flours, your liquid will have a lot of time to soak into the flour, so you won't experience any grittiness, which is something that I hear a lot about gluten-free baked goods, and it's not next level. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna weigh our flours, and we are going to give them plenty of time. That is one of the secrets right there. So another flour that we are going to use is sorghum flour. I just love the taste of sorghum flour, and I love the height it gives to gluten-free yeasted products. I love a sorghum French bread. I love it in a cinnamon roll, and it's got a great nutty flavor. If you don't have any of this in the house and you don't want to go out and get it, you could use a gluten-free oat flour or a millet flour. Those also work wonderfully in the cinnamon rolls. Millet flour has a little bit more crispness to it, and oat flour has sort of an earthiness and lots of good rise like the sorghum. So if you would like to make those substitutions, you can. I wouldn't go crazy. Not all gluten-free flours are interchangeable, but those could be. So I'm going to go ahead and weigh this on here and then hit that tare button. You know, I've got these, but you don't have to do the dishes. You could just shake it right out of the bag and it'd be great. Okay, so tapioca flour is my next one. Tapioca coming from the cassava root. Sometimes you see it listed as tapioca starch. In the world of tapioca, those two are one and the same. It's not the same in potatoes, but it is in tapioca. I don't know why. Very, very strange, but we're going to put that in, and that's going to give us also a lot of nice stretch and pull to make good, fluffy cinnamon rolls. So I've got all of those dry ingredients in there. I am going to add some sugar. The sugar is not only for the sweetness in the cinnamon rolls, which of course we want, but also helps feed the yeast so it can get nice and bubbly. Give us lots of good rise. Salt. Salt seasons, but also helps keep the yeast from going too crazy after it eats all that sugar and keeps us in balance with our baked goods. So you want to make sure you have both of those, even if, you know, you are watching your salt or something like that. You want to look for a recipe that's already got low salt, because in baking recipes, it can change everything. I have instant yeast here. Sometimes that is called quick rise yeast or bread machine yeast, and those are all one and the same. You can use those interchangeably. There are a few yeasts out there on the market that are not gluten-free. I believe that one with a gold label, like shiny gold, not yellow, is not gluten-free and says it really big on the front. So you just want to turn it over, see if it says gluten-free. I've got Red Star instant yeast here, and that I've used for a long time. It works great. The thing about instant yeast, the reason I want to use it is because it is a little more foolproof than your active dry yeast. I don't have to put it in liquid and wait and see if it bubbles. Instant yeast can be added directly with the dry ingredients. So I'm all about that. I'm all about simplicity wherever I can find it, wherever we can make that happen. I have a couple more ingredients that go in here. This next one may be slightly surprising, but really is the homey fluffiness. This is a secret that my good friend Becky uses in her cinnamon rolls, and I thought, is that going to work in gluten-free? Yes, my friends, it does, and it's spectacular. It takes your rolls to new heights and a lovely soft texture. These are potato flakes or instant mashed potatoes. You could also use an equal amount, if you have it in your pantry, an equal amount of potato flour, not potato starch. Remember I said they were different. Potato flour is just ground up dehydrated potato, which is, these are dehydrated potato. Just so happens that potato flakes are a lot cheaper than potato flour. So I know gluten-free isn't cheap, but I'm trying to save you money where I can. So I got the potato flakes, and we're going to add that right in with our regular ingredients. You know, it comes in a big box. Probably get it near, I don't know, in the canned vegetable section, or over by the stuffing, maybe around Thanksgiving, you know, depending on what time of year it is. It can be in different places. For flavor, I love to add a little citrus lift to this spicy, gooey, decadent concoction. So I have a lemon, but you can also use a small orange. Either one of those is lovely. And I'm just going to put some of the zest into this with my microplane grater. A microplane grater, if you don't have one, I mean, it doesn't have to be this brand, but what you want is a rasp style grater that has very fine holes. And that is perfect for getting just the color, just the yellow part off of our citrus, which is where the citrus oils are. It's where all the flavor is. Now, the juice is flavorful, but not as flavorful as the oil. That's really going to add something to our cinnamon rolls. And the white part directly under the skin, that is the pith. That's very bitter. That would ruin the whole thing. So we want this kind of grater that just takes off the very edge. So I'm just going to grate this right over the top. Now, when you buy your citrus, take a close look at it. Make sure that it's not waxed. Some of them are waxed just to be shiny and pretty on the store shelf. It doesn't ruin anything. It just means go over to your sink, run it under some really hot water, and give that a good wash and get all that off, because nobody wants to grate some wax in their cinnamon rolls. That is not the best plan. Okay, so I've got lots of good zest in there. That is going to be lovely. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the juice. If you weren't going to use the juice, you'd want to wrap this in plastic wrap if you're going to save it for later, or the beeswax wrap, because the thing is, after it loses the waxy coat, it starts to go bad very quickly. So you don't want that to happen. So I'm just going to cut this and have it ready to go because we're almost ready to put it all together. I will move this out of the way. So you can see I've got all my dry ingredients in my mixer bowl. I'm going to use the paddle attachment. I wanted to show you this because, you know, if you do have a stand mixer, it's going to come with 3 attachments, one of which is called a bread hook, which is great. I don't use it very often for gluten-free breads or doughs like this. I get a better mix and a better knead with this non-glutinous dough with this paddle attachment, just like you'd use to make cookies. So go ahead and put on the paddle. I'm going to lock that down, and I just turn it on to stir all the dry things together just for a couple minutes. So, or a couple seconds, actually. That was not a couple minutes. So here we go. I'll take that back out again just so you can see, nice and mixed together. Then back to this. Do you remember what we did over here? This was our psyllium blooming in our milk. And as you can see, I've gotten quite, you know, it's pretty gelled in parts. It's definitely a lot thicker than it was. I broke that up a little bit just so it would be easier to mix in. And what I'm going to do is just put that. You see how thick that is? That is super thick, a lot thicker than the milk was. That gave us a head start in making a really good thick dough. So I love these kind of lemon squeezers. Not really sure what they're called, but you put them cut side down, it turns the whole thing out and gets maximum juice. I might have had one little pit fall in. Do you guys ever have that happen? One little pit? Nobody's going to want to pit in their cinnamon rolls, are they? We'll just pull that out. Ooh, maybe you're more skilled than I am and you won't have that happen. So I've got the lemon juice here, and the other last item that I have to put in the dough before we really get cooking are 2 eggs. Now, I have made this very successfully with flax eggs. Use the flax and water, mix it together. Works like a charm. Absolutely beautiful. I would go that route if you can, and you are avoiding eggs because it really works great. So I've got both my eggs in here. So I will get mixing. I'm going to start it up. Now, if you remember, one of the secrets that I told you earlier for making sure that your gluten-free baked goods aren't gritty is to give it a good long mix. So we're going to mix this a little bit longer than we would if it were a gluten dough, so don't be surprised. I'm just going to start this off on the lowest setting. Okay, I'm going to get all that mixed in. Lemon juice, flavor, and also the acidity. It really does help give us a little lift. There we are. And my eggs. One at a time. I just want to give it time to get mixed in. Make cinnamon rolls for an army. Double it. Works fine. So just keep this going. hydrating the psyllium before we started has really given us so much body to this dough. I remember when I first started cooking or baking gluten-free, it was really very difficult to have a dough that wasn't just a batter. It wasn't just something that you pour in. If you are doing this by hand, or if you just want to have a super smooth dough to finish up, then you want to go ahead and open this up. I might do it a little bit longer if you guys weren't watching me, but I don't know. I've got, so you can see what we're working with. So I've got my nice big mountain of cinnamon roll dough here, which is lovely. And I'm going to get my hands, just sprinkle a little brown rice flour on my surface and on my hands. And I'm just going to knead it just like I would any dough. Gluten dough, gluten-free dough. I'm going to pull, and what we're doing here, basically, is we are forcing the milk and eggs, the liquid that is in the dough, we're forcing that into the flour and helping it hydrate. And so it's going to give us a lot smoother dough in the end. Look at that. It already looks smoother than it did. Can you see? We've got a much smoother dough than we had. I'm going to give it a few more turns with the kneading. Just pull towards myself and then push. Sort of lean down a little bit. So if you didn't have the stand mixer, you'd start out by stirring with your big spoon and then just do a little bit of this. And it's so meditative. It just feels so good. Give it a nice big smash. You can work out all your frustrations. Okay, this is nice and smooth. So what I'm going to do is pop it back into the bowl. And I will, holding the moisture in, and this is called the bulk rise. We're just going to set this aside for about an hour to rise, soak in all the liquid, get a little bit of puffiness, but really just hydrate and become dough that I made earlier. I thought, you guys don't want to wait an hour, do you? Don't have that kind of time. You'll just know when you're at home that you will want to give that more time. Now, this right here has puffed up. It is actually half that amount over there. That's for a full batch. I've been making cinnamon rolls all day over here for the fam. How many did we need? I don't know, quite a bit. So I've got half a batch of dough. The kids are still super excited about it. So here is a little more flour dusting. And I'm going to take this. I have a little bit of insurance, though, for that. I'm going to roll it on top of this. This is parchment paper. I love to use parchment paper. Things don't stick to it. It gives you a lot of insurance. If you didn't want to use that, you could also use a tea towel and sprinkle some flour on it. It's going to help you roll it in the end, so it's nice to have something like that. Now, if you use a tea towel, don't use the kind that is fluffy like a bath towel. It has those fuzzies. You don't want fuzzies in your cinnamon rolls. No, you want like a fine weave. You know, I'm going to use the parchment paper, but you use whatever you like. I'll just give it another tiny sprinkle of my brown rice flour, or, you know, if you had all-purpose gluten-free flour, this that you're dusting could be a different flour. You could use millet or oat or sorghum or whatever you'd like. And I'm just going to start to roll this out. I'm going to go gently moving from the inside out, because, you know, anytime you roll anything, as you can see, if I've got the paper, I can kind of turn this to make it more convenient for me. But anytime you're rolling something out, what tends to happen, no matter what you're doing, is that the ends get thinner than the middle. So you want to always start from the middle, no matter what. And I can just keep turning this. Go back over it a little bit more. Turn that a little more. If you get a little cracking on the edge, you just push that back together. This is actually very forgiving. Just keep gently pushing. I have, by the way, this is a French style rolling pin. You may have the kind that you hold on to the edges. That's perfectly fine too. Totally great. I use stainless steel here just because I didn't want it to be porous and hold any allergens. We have a gluten-free kitchen anyway, so it really doesn't matter, but I do love this. It's fairly indestructible. So I'm just going to go over this, and I'll come back if I've got any parts that really look strange, need a little help. This end over here, I'm not, you see how I've got like a little part where I didn't get it quite even? Guys, it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. It's just cinnamon rolls. So I'm going to put this over to the side. It'll be in the swirl, inside the swirl. Nobody will see that. So I've got that, and now I need to bring out the things that are going to make the filling, right? Because we got cinnamon rolls with no cinnamon at this point. That will never do. Can't do that. So I have another little bowl, and I love to use brown sugar in this case. White sugar will absolutely work. Brown sugar just tastes lovely. Has moistness, a little caramel flavor. It's molasses that's added back in here in white sugar. So, just gives you a little caramelized taste. Purely my preference. It also helps keep a little bit of the softness because that molasses is in there, and, white sugar is a little crisper in baked goods. This is lots and lots of cinnamon. Here's the thing that I want to tell you about cinnamon. All your spices, really, but cinnamon, if you buy lovely, fresh spices, they will make everything that you bake taste so much better. Buy them from someplace that sells lots of spices, that goes through lots of spices, and you will be a happier person. If you open up your container of cinnamon and it doesn't smell like anything, it's not going to taste like anything either, because it's all these oils that are in the cinnamon that release the flavor. And they evaporate quickly once it's ground. So you just want to make sure that you're getting fresh cinnamon. Put that in, loads of cinnamon. So I'll just sort of lightly mix that together. You want to make sure this is softened, otherwise you're really going to be fighting it. That is super soft. If you have forgotten to soften your butter, you're my people. You're in my crew. That's exactly what I would do. So if you've forgotten, here's a couple tricks for you. Take your cold butter out of the fridge. Take a drinking glass, a tall drinking glass. Fill it with hot tap water. Dump that out. Put your stick of butter in that steamy glass and put a plate over the top to trap in the steam. Boom. It's going to soften up very quickly. If you have a few more minutes than that, even easier, take out your stick of butter that's cold, leave it on a metal surface, not a stone countertop, not a plastic item. Those are poor conductors of heat. Metal is a very good conductor of heat. So if you don't have a metal table like I have here, then use a sheet pan or a cookie pan or something in your house that is metal, and put your butter there, and it will soften up in 15 minutes. You'll have nice softened butter, because I never remember to take the softened butter out, or maybe I just like to make cinnamon rolls on a whim, so I just don't have that ready to go all the time. So you can use those tricks. Well, that's totally fine. So what I want to do is just spread this out, because it's almost time to roll cinnamon rolls. So here we go, nice spreading. The closer you take it, the more delicious it's going to be, and the more swirls you're going to see, because that's the showy part, right? Okay, so here we go. Got this all nice and spread out. Our dough is strong enough so it doesn't tear or anything like that. So here's this, because this one's sort of the funkier edge. So I just start it with my fingers, and then what I do is I take my paper and use it to help me roll up my cinnamon rolls. Sort of lift the paper and guide. Look at that. Boom. I guided the whole thing off and onto the table. So now we have a nice, I'm going to take this same piece of parchment paper that I already have, because, I had another one here, but why waste it? The same piece of parchment paper I just used, and this is your origami lesson, I'm going to line the bottom of this round pan with this. Now, if you use that rectangle pan I showed you earlier, then just lay the parchment paper down. You're done. If you want to do half and line this, I'm just going to show you how to do it. I want to fold my parchment paper into a rectangle. I fold it in half, and then I fold it in half again. Now I'm going to make a little triangle, a skinnier triangle. The skinnier you make your triangle, the better of a circle you're going to get. Point to the middle of your pan, and then just make a little cut. It might not be perfect, but it's going to be close. Stick butter so it won't be soggy. So here we go. Pan is ready. Okay. Now I'm going to walk over here, and I'm going to heat. You know, gluten-free baking is usually at higher heat, and sometimes it's for longer, so don't be surprised. It just takes a while to get through. Okay, so I'm turning that on. I have some other dough ready to go, but I'm going to show you. I just have this knife here. It's got a little bit of a serrated edge, and I'm going to be very gentle and cut this into cinnamon rolls. So here we go. I'm just going to cut this gently into nice tall rolls. I mean, a real cinnamon roll, right? We didn't go through all this to have a teeny weeny one. So what we'll do now is just pull these out and lay them in here. Can you guys see? I'm just going to Tetris my way to a beautiful pan of cinnamon rolls. There we go. You can tell, once I get this all here, if you've got one that's got the edge maybe folded over, that there's a little bit of a space in between these cinnamon rolls. That's what you want, because we're going to let it rise again. You let this rise. You've got choices. You can either let it rise for 15 minutes on the counter and then stash it in your fridge overnight. That's a great idea for cinnamon rolls because maybe you want to eat them in the morning, okay? Or you can just let it rise for 45 minutes right now if you want to bake them tonight. So you decide how you want to eat your cinnamon rolls, and that is how we'll do it, okay? So I covered this up, plastic wrap, or, the beeswax wrap, something like that. Keep the moisture in. I'm going to put this to the side to rise. There we go. Now, suspend disbelief. We have waited 45 minutes. The oven has come up to temperature, and we put it in our oven for 50 to 60 minutes for the full batch. Check it at 40 if you want to do the half, like I have here, okay? So here, look at those. Do they make you so happy? I'm smelling them, so they make me really, really happy. These are lovely, puffy, beautiful swirls of cinnamon rolls, gluten-free cinnamon rolls, light as a feather. All that good, potato flakes and all that did their magic and fluffed it up. So I don't want to leave it just like this. You could just eat it right now. Very, very wonderful, but let's dress it up even a little bit more. It's cream cheese, which adds a lovely richness, but it is a glaze, not a frosting, so it doesn't overpower the whole thing. So I'm just going to mix together cream cheese. I have softened it. Same tricks that work with the butter will also work with the cream cheese, so you can do that if you have forgotten to soften that. I'm going to add that to a bowl of powdered sugar here. I also have some vanilla extract. I make this vanilla extract, so I'm just going to pour a little here. Vanilla beans and vodka is all I do. Got that there. And then just a little milk to thin it out. And that is really all you need. And then if you have a hand mixer, you can do that, or you can just, work hard with your spoon. So this first part here is the hardest bit because powdered sugar likes to run all over the place. So start on low with your mixer. My vanilla, because I definitely want to make sure that I get a good flavor in there. And it's definitely thickening up. Okay, you can see it's still fairly chunky. Now this is what's going to thin us out into more of a glaze. And if you want, you can add most of the milk, hold back, see if you like that texture. If you want more, can't really take it out. You just have to add more sugar. The mixer part of any class is always so hilarious. Okay, so gotten that. We've got a nice glaze. This is what I'm going to go with. And I'll just slosh a little bit of that over the top. That's my technical term. Slosh. If it's still warm, it'll soak in a bit. That's lovely. And I really want to beat it because nobody likes a lumpy glaze. And powdered sugar does like to come out of the bag a little bit lumpy. So if you don't want to sift, you got to go crazy with your mixer. So there we are. Are you ready? After all that, don't you think that this is going to be your next level gluten-free brunch breakfast? Here you go. You're the hero. Very excited to see what you think. Please, if you make it, take a picture. Tag me. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see those pictures. Also, I have lots of gluten-free classes and gluten-free, totally free recipes for you. So come visit me, and I'm excited to hear what you think and what your questions are.